You're listening to the Cinemental Podcast.
Shall we begin?
Welcome back to the Cinemental Podcast, where we discuss mental health themes from cinema, television, and popular culture. I'm Jeffrey Jones, and I'm a filmmaker and professor, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, Dr. Joshua Jones, who, as well as being the only psychiatrist that I would trust to perform my exorcism, is a general and forensic psychiatrist.
You said on Monday you wouldn't have me do it. Now you're saying you're the only one. Oh, it's because of what great content we produced on Monday, which everyone should go listen to right now.
I don't know what possessed me to say that, Josh.
Nice. That was well done. That was well done.
You. All right. We want you to start your week off right with our podcast. So we drop a new episode every Monday sometimes and Thursdays, both at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch our hottest and spiciest clips on YouTube, now with full episodes as well. All right, we're continuing our coverage of The Exorcist. This was the OG exorcism film, one of the greatest horror films of all time. It's in my top 5. It's a movie about a possessed girl and a priest battling with his faith who come together and help exorcise the girl. This movie led to massive controversy, and it was based on the book, which was about a real story about a kid who was exorcised in 1949. Josh, tell us what we're talking about today.
Well, we're going to talk about the alleged story of the real exorcism that was made famous in the novel by William Peter Blatty. We're going to talk about the top 5 list that nobody asked for.
Yeah.
Then we're going to talk about a couple things going on in the news.
If you want the recap, watch Monday's episode. Great movie. But let's dig into the case. So this is based on a case in 1949. There was a 13-year-old boy referred to in documentation as Roland Doe, later identified as Ronald Hunkeler? I apologize for not knowing how to pronounce your name. Let's just call him Roland Doe. Began experiencing disturbing phenomena following his aunt's death. This I thought was cool, Josh. She had introduced him to spiritualism and a Ouija board, after which his family reported strange noises, objects moving inexplicably, and unusual behavior. Hoping to end the disturbances, they moved, but the phenomena persisted. Desperate, the family contacted their local Catholic parish, where Father Raymond Bishop and later Father William Bowdern, I think, both Jesuits, conducted a series of exorcisms. This was in St. Louis, eventually moving the boy to Georgetown University Hospital. Witnesses reported Roland speaking in guttural adult voices, voices in Latin, sudden fits of self-harm, and furniture shifting on its own, which is just frickin' fascinating. The author, William Peter Blatty, then a student at Georgetown, came across this story through firsthand accounts and Father Bishop's journals. He wove these details into his 1971 novel, The Exorcist, changing the central figure from a boy to a girl, Regan, to heighten its emotional impact. When Friedkin adapted the novel into the 1973 film, he faithfully retained key elements: demonic voices, furniture moving, and the intensity of the exorcism ritual. This gets super cool. The Roland Doe case ended with the priest declaring the demon expelled. Roland reportedly lived a normal life, eventually becoming an engineer for NASA. While skeptics point to psychological and environmental factors, the case remains a cornerstone of modern exorcism lore and the undeniable foundation for arguably the most famous horror film and franchise ever made. Super fascinating stuff, Josh. Apparently, towards the end of his life, he wanted nothing to do with anything involving his exorcism. He never denied it. He never said it happened. He just didn't want anything to do with it. I think it would have done us all a favor if he could have either confirmed or denied it. I also don't blame him for just saying, no, piss off. You know, This is something that happened to me as a boy. Don't want to talk about it. I've processed it. It's not for you. I have no problem with it. Would have been cool, but good on you, Roland. This was your experience, and you're entitled to deal with it however you please.
I completely agree. And I think in our attention economy nowadays, we kind of look at it and go, wait a minute, how dare you keep this to yourself? Right. And I think that's just the wrong impulse. You want to keep this to yourself? That's great. I also don't find it unusual or even all that remarkable that he reportedly went on to live a regular life. Now, again, this is a real person. I've never met him. I've never examined his case, anything like that. So I can't comment on his case from an ethical perspective. But what I would say, if we look at the Regan experience in The Exorcist as being maybe a person who in psychiatric parlance would have been diagnosed with functional neurologic symptom disorder. As we talked about on Monday, this kind of gray area in between neurology and psychiatry where usual neurologic symptoms might be created by some psychiatric or something that we don't know about yet in medicine. It doesn't surprise me that someone could have this go away, then live a relatively normal life.
One of the things I love about you, I can't diagnose someone that I didn't see. I love that. Can you, though, give me what the potentials are for someone in this particular case to get better?
If I'm thinking about somebody who's got a functional neurologic symptom disorder and they've got a whole bunch of symptoms that we can't explain, and they get a huge workup and they get a lot of care, maybe it's even after they've experienced a trauma, like a loved one dying or something like that, I can see them getting better from that care. I can see them getting better from unconscious and subconscious healing, processing the trauma, having attachments reconnected to loved ones, all those sorts of things that are very difficult to quantify medically and psychiatrically, but are very real. You go through a phase and it gets better.
I love it.
I'm not
kidding.
kidding.
That's a deep Jones cut, but we won't explain that one. The exorcism might have worked insofar as it was what he psychologically needed at the time, correct?
Or one of the things that might have psychologically been helpful.
And would you also fathom a wager the care he was getting psychologically at the time might not have been the best? Do you think that someone in 1949 who was showing signs of possession would get better faster now?
I think they certainly might be able to get better faster now. Let's go back to the movie. You'll notice that when Reagan was being worked up for this, the medical workup, there was really this bright line between medicine and psychiatry, right? They went through all these tests and only at the end said, okay, now let's get a psychiatrist involved. That was really a function of the time. We're talking like 50 years ago. Psychiatry had talk therapy and we had some early medicines that had a lot of side effects. We had some antidepressants, some antipsychotics, but they had a lot of side effects. We certainly didn't have the understanding of how much the brain and the body are connected. Yeah. It seems silly now because obviously the brain and the body are connected, but that is a relatively new concept in terms of psychiatry and medicine, that the two things are so connected that the brain and the body can affect one another.
Will you confirm a TikTok fact for me? One of the facts that I read recently was that babies weren't given anesthesia until somewhat recently because doctors didn't think that babies felt pain. Is that a real thing?
That was a common conception, yes.
Wow. There's things about this world that just scare the crap out of me, Josh.
Jeff, I think what's scariest about humans is it's not what we don't know. It's what we think we know that just isn't so.
Oh, 100%. I completely agree. It's all the things we take for granted as fact. It's our basis. We always say in philosophy that everybody's logic is going to be sound. Everybody who knows how to make an argument is going to make a logically sound argument. So you attack the assumptions. And some of our assumptions and some of our beliefs are so long held that we never question them. And when those are wrong, there's real damage that can be done. Someone believing that there's mustard and relish until they're 30 years old or whatever, which is, we've told that story before, but our dad did Josh dirty with that one.
He did me real dirty. He just didn't want to get up and get what I assume was his 5-year-old son, the mustard that he forgot to put on his hot dog. So he just flat told me.
Lied to him and...
Oh, there's mustard and relish.
And you believed it for 25 years.
Believed it to my core. Believed it to my core until my wife said, no, there's not.
That's so good. Let me ask you this, Josh, because this is one of those things that just concerns me as a normie, as someone who's not a doctor. What concerns me is if I go to the doctor and there's something that is just, it's wrong with me, don't know what's going on. Is a doctor more likely to guess than to say, I don't know?
I don't think so anymore.
Okay.
I definitely don't think younger generations, probably my generation and younger, are going to say that. They're going to say, wow, that's really interesting. I obviously don't know all of medicine at the top of my, at the tip of my brain. So let's look this up.
Right.
And that's the right thing to do. I think you see that more and more and more. And the information that we need to fill in the holes in our knowledge is so readily available nowadays. There's no reason to say, oh, I know everything, because you don't. And
But that's the way that our society has gone, Josh. That's the thing that scares me is like nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. Even when you're proven wrong, you don't have to, there's no comeuppance for it.
Well,
people could just say whatever they want. And that is sort of the society that we've somehow made through, the social medias and whatnot.
I think that's a short-term gain for long-term disaster. And I have to believe that that is going to reverse itself at some point.
Yeah, fair. All right, Josh, that's about all I need to cover in terms of Roland Doe. From what I understand, he lived a very full life. I'm so glad that it worked out that way.
Yeah.
I made this point on Monday that the reason we are not seeing more possessions is not because people aren't being possessed, but because demons have gotten better at hiding it. So I'm not going to say that Roland was the last person to be possessed. It's very, very possible that the demons are just better at it. Think of that the next time someone cuts you off in traffic.
Whatever the case is that despite the exorcism, he just kept on rolling.
Nice. Rolling on the river. We had a kid named Roland in the third grade, and we just sang, his name was Roland, and we sang Rolling on the River all the time, and he hated it, and we were bullies. And poor guy. If you're listening, I apologize. Okay, Josh, let's talk about some of the stuff that's been in the news. I think you wanted to cover a little bit of what's going on in Texas.
Oh, Jeff, this just hurt my heart. So, of course, I think everybody knows, of course, that we've had some really catastrophic flooding across the southern United States. And in Texas, there were dozens of people who died. And I just have to call attention to Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and something that he said. And I just can't let it go. I can't let it pass by. He was asked about the people that died and asked, what went wrong. And he used an analogy in which he likened the deadly floods to football. And he said, quote, "You asked that I'm going to use your words, who's to blame? Know this, that's the word choice of losers." And he goes on to say, basically to say that the deaths weren't as important as the winning that he feels that he and the Trump administration together are doing. I've just felt compelled to call that out on this podcast as part of our ongoing series about what we should do, what we should be doing to kind of combat this lack of empathy. And that's really what this was, complete and total lack of empathy from some of our leaders, many of whom are Republicans. Not all. There are certainly some Democrats who have been callous as well. It's always been this, not even dirty little secret, it's been this reality that many people who get into power stop caring about, or really didn't care about from the outset, the little person who they were, supposed to be governing, so who they were chosen to be the governor by the governed. And we kind of always knew that. But what's happening more and more and more, and Greg Abbott just comes out and does this as the latest example, is the people in power, they're not even pretending anymore. Greg Abbott, he said the quiet part out loud here, that these deaths weren't as important as this sense that they are somehow winning. I just want us to rebuke that strongly. I don't know Greg Abbott. Maybe he's done some other really, really great things. I really don't know. What I do know is that in this case right here, in likening the fact that he doesn't really care if there's accountability about these people's deaths, just look at the scoreboard, whatever that is, we must do better. We have to.
It's funny. I feel like, and this is paint with a broad brush, but I feel like there is one side that's about accountability and one side that's not. I'm thinking about like the Epstein files right now, which I don't even know if there are Epstein files. I don't want to give any amount of time to talking about the Epstein files. But I had a conversation with a friend who's a Republican, and I'm seeing these conversations. People are saying they want to know the Democrats that are on there, not necessarily the Republicans. And if the Republicans, then, they kind of don't want to know. And would we as Democrats want our people held accountable? Like, what if there are Democrats on there too is the question. And it's like, good, get them. Get them. If there are Democrats on there, if Bill Clinton is on there, go after him. because I'm all about holding people accountable, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Democrats eat our own if they act a fool. One of the talking points I've seen is like, oh, we're spending all this time talking about the Epstein files. If there's something to prosecute. Dude, you guys spent 2 years, 3 years talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, and there was never anything there. So like the hypocrisy there is crazy. But if there are people to hold accountable, let's hold them accountable, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. I don't care. Most Democrats don't care. We destroyed Al Franken for what he did, and there were some jokes that he made that were inappropriate, and we're like, okay, we're done with you. You know, that sort of stuff doesn't fly from our leaders. This explaining away everything that Republicans do by Republicans is just one of those differences that drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely nuts. Yes, let's hold everybody accountable.
You heard it here first, folks. Josh and Jeff Jones, pro accountability.
Pro accountability.
And that goes for us too, guys. If we get something wrong, shout it out to us in the comments. We're happy to have a conversation about it. We don't know everything, and our minds can be changed.
Yeah, we've actually had some really great moments where people have held us accountable, specifically on like gender issues. You know, they've helped me understand better in terms of being able to have conversations with friends of mine who don't prescribe to one particular gender. You know, I've learned a lot by people in the comments. Josh, one other thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the top 5, if you'll indulge me.
What's on your mind?
So it has to do with religion and science. So on TikTok, saw this debate between a scientist and someone in religion, and they were talking about faith. And the religious person was like, look, we have faith in religion. You don't know everything about science. You have faith in science. And I thought that was really interesting. And I was trying to think of a way to explain our faith, you and my faith in science, as opposed to, faith in religion. And I was thinking about it this way. You and I were both pretty good at math. I don't know what math you took in college. I went through multivariate calculus. I eventually got to linear algebra, and then I tapped out. I couldn't understand it anymore. But as I went through school and did arithmetic and multiplication and algebra and trigonometry, all those things, certain kids fell off. They couldn't understand anymore. And I remember trying to tutor some kids and being like, I just don't get it. And they're like, okay, but you trust me that I get it, correct? Yes, I trust. You've known all the math I've known. I get that I just can't get it. I trust that you can get it. So they had faith in my understanding based on them knowing it can be understood because they understood it up to a certain point. And so for me, I went deep into multivariate calculus, understanding math. And at some point I had to say, I have faith that you know it and that what you know is true. When we look at science, there's a lot of people who were on the same path I was and just were smarter than I was and continued on. And I have faith that they know what they know. And when I look at religion, when I was a kid, it was the same faith argument. And it was, well, you just have to have faith. And it's like, well, that's not good enough. You have to prove to me somehow. You have to show me something. Oh, that's not the way it works. It's faith. So their faith is faith. Our faith is based on the science that we've seen so far and knowing that things work.
Yeah.
Planes go through the sky. And I was thinking about specifically the Challenger and the Challenger explosion, and that was, science failing. Science didn't fail. We didn't have a complete picture. None of the things we knew were not true. We just didn't have a complete picture. And so when science fails, it's important to realize it's just that we didn't know all of it yet. But very rarely is science proved wrong. Yeah. And that's the difference between faith in science and faith in religion.
I think the difference is that people try to apply the word faith incorrectly. Faith in religion, that's the correct application. Faith in science, that is the incorrect application. Because what you're actually talking about is not faith, it's trust. Right. And that's a different thing.
I agree.
When you're talking about the student that you tutored, you weren't saying, hey, you have faith in me. That may have been the words you used. Right. But what you were saying is, you trust me that I get this and that I can show you, if I have to, all the way back to first principles. That's what science is.
And then we see it.
We see it.
Vaccines work. Planes work.
Well,
buildings work.
If I have to take a scientific principle and trace it all the way back to first principles, I can do that.
Right.
I trust that the scientists who I'm listening to have done all that.
Right.
That trust can be betrayed.
Sure.
There is
RFK.
There is a very RFK is not a scientist, but there have been scientists who have betrayed that trust. For instance, the author of the Lancet Journal article that drew the correlate between vaccines and autism,
right,
could not, when challenged, relate it back to first principles.
Right.
Did not do the science that got it all the way back there. The trust was ruptured, and the scientific community doesn't trust that scientist again.
And we held them accountable.
It held them accountable. So it's not that we have faith in science. It's that we trust the scientific principles that science has, that our current understanding of science has been built up on. And we trust in the scientific method that if new information comes along, we will incorporate that and we will change to a new understanding, which is different than faith.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson says this very, very well. I felt like this was an apropos thing to talk about, Josh, on a day when we're talking about, faith and science. Priest Karras being, both a psychiatrist and a priest. Okay, Josh, that's it for the tough stuff. Let's have some fun.
Oh,
let's do our top 5 list this week that nobody asked for, and you've got a special one for us.
Well, Jeff, I know you say let's shift from the hard work to having fun. This was tough to put this list together, man. This was hard, back-breaking work. Now, nobody asked for this list, as you know, but I have prepared for you the top 5 overdone horror movie tropes that we just need to get rid of.
I love it. Lay 'em on me, Josh. Do you have any honorable mentions, or you want to just get into the top 5?
I don't today. We're going to jump right into
top 5. Give me number 5.
All right, Jeff, this isn't exclusive to horror movies, but the villain who monologues and gives the hero time to escape and fight back. You know this one. The killer has the hero completely at their mercy, often tied up or cornered, but instead of finishing them off, Jeff, they decide it's the perfect time to explain their elaborate plan, their tragic backstory involving their sibling getting a Nintendo Entertainment System before they did, or just revel in their evilness. This inevitably gives the hero the precise amount of time needed to untie themselves, grab a weapon, or call for help.
Do you have on this list the villain walk-off?
I don't.
Okay, good. Because I think that this is kind of the same thing. It's the I'm just going to trust that the hero is going to die, and I'm going to not spend the extra 30 seconds.
I'm not just going to stab you myself. I'm going to you're right. That will be in our James Bond. That will be in a James Bond episode.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. And then he just walks up. Yeah, the laser's going to get him. That was number 5. All right, number 4.
This is a relatively modern one, Jeff. The cell phone that mysteriously loses all signal or battery.
Oh, I tell you though, Josh, from a writer's perspective, cell phones have fucked us because they get us out of so many problems. So we have to find a way for cell phones to fail in order to make good movies.
Well, Jeff, our heroine is in dire straits. She needs to call for help, and lo and behold, her fully charged smartphone suddenly has 0 bars in the middle of a bustling city, or the battery dies just as she's about to dial 911. It was at 90% a minute ago, but sometimes it's even smashed in a clumsy fall.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, number 3.
The jump scare. That's really just a cat or a friend or a closet door.
Right.
The scene builds immense tension, slow camera pan, ominous music, silence, then a sudden loud noise and a rapid cut to a cat.
Yeah. Interesting. I have some thoughts on jump scare. So, okay, number 2.
This almost was number 1. I love this one. The incompetent, unbelieving authorities, right? You've got the lone survivor of a horrific ordeal, and he tries to explain what happened to the police, to the sheriff, to doctors, and they proceed to either dismiss them as crazy, blame them for the murders, or just generally act like they've never encountered anything remotely out of the ordinary in a town where people disappear weekly.
Sure.
It's almost like police academy training includes a mandatory course on how to gaslight traumatized victims.
All right, Josh, give me the number 1 trope that you think we need to get rid of from horror films.
When faced with an obvious, unkillable monster or ghost or psychopath, the protagonists, instead of sticking together in a group that might have a fighting chance, say to each other, let's split up.
Yeah.
We can cover more ground that way while we all collectively groan.
Yeah. It's pretty dumb. That's pretty dumb.
Yep.
All right, Jai, that was a pretty good list. I would have added for a couple others, maybe my honorable mentions for you. I'm so done with the scary kid losing control of their limbs and acting like a spider and climbing on walls.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's just, it's in every single movie.
Yep.
It's not scary anymore. We've seen it 1,000 times, but it's such a trailer moment. That one to me is so dumb. And another one I've got for you is the slow walking antagonist. There's no reason to walk that slow. If you are so sure that you're going to kill somebody, then sure, yeah, walk, eat it up. But they're not, and the hero always gets away. There's no reason to move that slow. Just go kill the person. But anytime I'm seeing somebody walk slow, I'm like, this is an incompetent villain, and I'm no longer rooting for him. It's unnecessary. Jason Voorhees sort of made that famous, but he always killed the person. So you can slow walk. You got to earn your slow walk by being an effective killer.
Let's not miss the little nugget that you root for the killers up until they do something dumb.
Oh, of course I root for the killers. Of course I do.
All right.
Oh, in all horror films, of course. Josh, I like excellence. And if someone's going to be a killer, I want to see them do it really well.
Okay.
If you're gonna, bring two poor ministry girl or whatever they're called, missionary girls into your house, like in Heretic, I want to see you do that really, really well. I don't want to see you fail. I like excellence.
Jeff Jones, always rooting for the sunrise.
Okay, well, thank you as always for watching or listening to Cinemental and our continuing coverage of The Exorcist. If you like this episode, please subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also watch clips of Cinemental on YouTube, where we would love to hear what you'd like us to cover next. You can also watch my companion series, The One Thing, where I take a deeper dive into screenwriting, both available on the Large and in Charge channel on YouTube. Follow Dr. Josh Jones, America's psychiatrist, on Blue Sky. This has been a Large and in Charge production. For Josh Jones, I am Jeff Jones, and we will see you next week for an undisclosed movie, because we haven't decided yet, but it's going to be great.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.